Here's Brodie Brazil.
This might be the number one most requested topic by pilots of all backgrounds. Whether you're a student trying to get your private license, whether you're a private pilot trying to advance to your instrument or instrument to commercial ticket, you're doing training and you're wondering, how can I save money during these lessons? I've got 6 tips, which I pretty much feel work across the board, no matter who you are or what you're trying to accomplish. But before I get to those, how about the top 2 questions that flight schools get? Number 1, how much does training cost again? And number 2, how long is this training going to take? Simply, you will absolutely never know with any precision until it's all said and done and you're looking back in reverse. Everybody's different individually, how quick you learn, how well you take to things, not even to mention things out of your control like is it summer or winter and how much flying opportunity will you have, or even the maintenance of an airplane. If it's down for a couple weeks for its annual, like that is definitely going to impact your flight training. So these 2 questions, if you ever hear them answered with any precision or specificity, take caution to that. I mean, we can generally give you ballpark numbers and ideas, but you'll only know when it's all over. Okay, that established, let's go through these 6 tips, which I really feel can help you maximize and stretch your dollar during flight training. Number 1, establish frequency in your lessons. If you're going too much, as in like 5 days a week, you're probably not going to have time in between those lessons individually to digest and to study the things that are necessary to your training. Essentially, you're not going to have enough downtime to let everything soak in properly. The general thought is, well, the more lessons I'm taking, the faster I'm training, and the sooner I'll get to passing my check ride. There may be some truth to that, but again, if we're talking about money and maximizing efficiency here, then you definitely want to have a certain pace to your lessons. We talked about too much, and there might be one exception to that. If you are becoming a full-time student, if you don't have a job or a family that requires tending to, if you're making this your one mission in life, then maybe you do have time for it 5 days a week. But for a lot of people, there is such a thing as too much. There's also such a thing as too little, as in 1 day a week or as in 1 day every other week. Because if you're doing that, I'm telling you, the hardest thing for you is going to be retaining enough information and what you learned between lessons. And in that sense, you're going to be reviewing and recovering a lot of things, and that's going to take time, and time is money. So for me, too little is once a week, too much is 5 times a week. If you really want to max your dollar during flight training, I feel like the sweet spot is 2 lessons, maybe even 3 lessons in a given week. For most people, probably the best way to put it. Okay, tip number 2 here is work with a primary instructor. You don't want to be doing musical chairs with your instructors because while it is true you can learn a lot from a different set of eyes and ears, only one person absolutely knows you and your progress the best. Now, this is not to say that you should avoid, doing your stage check with somebody else. That's not true. Or even, once in a while you want to switch it up, or your instructor is booked or out of town, fly with somebody else, because as much as you think there might be an acclimation period and it's going to be a setback, quite honestly, you might actually learn a few things that you otherwise never would have picked up on if you didn't fly with somebody new. So the point here, use one primary instructor, but also don't be scared to test the waters a little bit elsewhere and see what else you can learn. Okay, tip number 3, chair flying is critical. What do I mean by chair flying? Like actually sitting in this chair and mentally rehearsing different sequences of flight or other things surrounding it, like visualizations of any flight-related sequence. You can sit in this chair, and in your mind, you can run a checklist. You can rehearse air traffic control communications. You can do pre-flight items. You can do briefings from your chair. You can simulate ACS maneuvers in terms of what am I doing here? What am I doing next? What am I looking for? The sequence of events. All of this is absolutely free. The more you can do it in your own chair, the more comfortable you're going to feel with it when it actually comes time to the prop spinning, you flying, and yes, you spending money. Point number 4 here of 6, you are responsible for the knowledge. I'm not saying here by any means that you should avoid doing ground lessons with your instructor, but I am saying ground lessons are best spent covering the most difficult topics and associated questions with your instructor. Make it so that you schedule a ground lesson. You've got 6 different things that you're struggling with or you're really trying to put together because you've spent your own time on this. Don't waste the instructor's time and don't waste your money having the instructor essentially reading to you out of the airplane flying handbook, if that makes sense. Do as much homework as you possibly can. Save the difficult topics and questions, and some people are visual learners, and some things are best explained with your hands or being drawn out on a whiteboard. Save those things for your ground lessons. Okay, point number 5 here, carefully utilize tech resources. Now, a lot of times when you watch a YouTube video, somebody will get halfway through explaining something as a pilot, then they'll say, well, I'm also not even an instructor, but here's what I have found works for most people. Well, okay, slow your roll there for just a second. You want to be very careful of who you're listening to and how they're describing it. Remember, you can't log flight training off of YouTube, including this video right here, even though I am an instructor, but I greatly advise you to use all the resources possible, like listening to live ATC or FlightAware, especially if you're an instrument pilot and you're trying to get your head in the system, even when you're not even flying an airplane. Play with Flight as much as you can on the ground so that when you're actually flying the airplane, it's like second nature to you. Instructional videos on YouTube and podcasts, all of these things, they help get your mind in the frame of flying, but again, carefully utilize these tech resources. If you're not certain on something, if you want to confirm it, actually go back to your flight instructor to make sure that you've learned the proper thing. And last here, but definitely not least, mentors and ride-alongs are absolutely free. What do I mean by ride-along? If your buddy's doing a flight lesson and they're at a similar point of their training and progress, sit in the back seat during their lesson. I guarantee you what you're observing, the process, especially if you're new to flying, the more you can be around this, the absolute better. So a ride along, how about a mentor? How about somebody who's been a pilot for 20 years? You know how we all like to always talk about flying. Who's ever going to turn you down for a conversation about flying? And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be techniques or tips, but usually just talk of the trade. You can't log any of this stuff again, but pilot friends, fellow students, and flight lessons that you can jump in on, they can be so valuable to you in terms of you learning and obviously here's saving money. So let me know in the comments section below, did I miss anything? Do you have any other tips? But I really feel like these 6 things are going to help you maximize your money when it comes to flight training.